I'm working on this 1961 wheel horse, model 401. In the last video, I modified part of the throttle system. That gave me more control over the engine speed. But every time I tried to adjust the carburetor, the engine would die. So I'm going to clean this old carburetor and see if I can get it to work better. These old Kohlers used bolts that were slotted to hold the carburetor on. You have to use a wrench to tighten them and loosen them, but to spin the bolts in or out quicker, I use a skinny screwdriver. I'm going to take it apart and clean it, so I take the float bowl off first. The float will come off if the pin drops out. I'll get this gasket out of the way and wiggle the float some more until the pin drops out. The needle valve should drop out, and that's as far as I go at the bottom. I'll take the mixture screws out. When you take the long one out of the top, you should be able to see all the way through the carburetor if you look through the main jet. I can see through there if I blow the old fuel out of the way. There's some tiny holes in the side of the long main adjustment needle. Sometimes you can see some junk plugging up the holes. The O-ring needs to come out. That and the rubber bowl gasket might get distorted by carburetor cleaner. This old bolt gasket and the float needle don't need to be in the cleaner. I'm using Berryman's Chem Dip in the gallon can. It comes with the basket in there. This float's pretty clean, so I'll keep it out. Okay, it's about 2 hours later. If you leave it in too long, like overnight, it'll change the color of the aluminum. I found this carburetor cleaner is really good for soaking, but it's darker and thicker, so I wash that stuff off by spraying on some gum out. Then use compressed air to get the excess off. Blow air through every hole you can find on the thing. Now I'm going to look for anything that's not right. It could be a plugged hole or anything that looks bent or loose. I don't usually use a rebuild kit unless something needs replaced. The old O-ring fits nicely in there. I'm going to use a Q-tip to clean out the brass seat. It has some green color to it, so there was some corrosion in there. The second end came out clean, so that's good. I wipe off the rubber tip of the needle and make sure it's not deformed. Then the float goes on and you put the pin in place. Now with the carburetor upside down so the float holds the needle closed, the float should be about parallel with the bowl mounting surface. This float's too close to the carburetor body, so I'm going to bend the little tab under there to hold the float up a little more. You got to make sure the pin don't come out while you're working with it. That looks good there. When the float closes the needle, it's parallel to the bowl mounting surface. Well, the camera died before I put the fuel bowl on, but that's all you missed. Here's what that looks like. Next I'll put in this idle mixture screw. I turn it in until it stops and then out one turn. Inspect all the holes in this long needle to make sure they're not plugged. Most of the holes go all the way through so you can see light through them. The one on the tip is different. You can't see light through it, so I always clean it with the wire. The bristle of a wire brush like this one is small enough to use for that. Don't forget to check the bigger holes up near the spring. I turn this one in until it stops and then out 1.5 turns. I have the gasket hanging on the bolts ready to go in. First you have to connect the throttle linkage. and then hold everything in position while you fiddle with getting the bolts started. Next, I'll connect the choke cable. The adjustment should still be good if your cable clamp don't slide on the cable. I'll put the air cleaner base on next. There's not much room in there. I have to use this stubby screwdriver. I have to get the air cleaner element to hang on that hook or the cover won't go on. I know the carburetor is completely empty, so I'm going to turn on the fuel. And pressurize the fuel tank for a bit. That'll let the fuel bowl fill up. Now I'm going to set up things like I normally would. The engine's cold, so I pull the choke all the way on. Set the throttle at mid position so the governor's holding the throttle plate open. Now I'll push in the choke. And now I'll move the throttle to the idle position. When it starts, I grab the throttle on the carburetor to control it. That way I'm overpowering the governor. Now I'll set the throttle so it stays running while I get a screwdriver. I'm going to raise up the RPM, leave the throttle in one place, and start turning the main needle. If it slows down, I go the other way. If it speeds up, I keep turning it until the engine slows down again. And I set the needle where the engine runs the best. Now I want to set the idle mixture, but it don't stay running for me. I'm going to set the idle speed screw up a bit, just to keep the engine running while I fiddle with it. Now I'll slow it down to idle speed to set the idle screw. And I turn the idle mixture screw in until it slows down, back out until it slows down, and set it midway between those 2 points. It slowed down there, but then recovered. I'm not going to change anything for that. Now I'm going to set the main screw again. Raise the RPM and leave the throttle in one place. Turn the screw in until it slows down. Back out until it slows down. And set it midway between those 2 points. Yeah, that looks better already. This is the first time I was able to do that without the engine dying. So the carburetor's responding correctly now. I'm going to turn the idle speed down some. Now I'll try restarting it a few different ways to see how it's going to start the easiest. Well, it don't like to start with the choke on, but it's not really cold anymore, so that's probably okay. Well, I like that so far. The Morrow County Farm Days is this weekend. That's a local farming festival. I'll probably take this tractor to show in our wheel horse display. Well, it's early Saturday morning. Some people are still setting up. The crowd's not here yet. Here's what our display looks like this time.
That's probably all it needs. I got two motors I need to do that.
Alright, that's it.